Good morning, my name is Tricia Bear from the Culinary Command Post, and today we're making homemade cinnamon rolls. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to warm up a cup of milk, 5 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. And it's very important that you use the correct yeast, which is this active dry yeast. You only need 2 1/4 teaspoons, and that's 1 pack of the yeast. So I've just warmed my milk in the microwave for about 30 seconds, and I'm going to add in my 5 tablespoons of sugar and also my 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. Now you do want to make sure that your yeast hasn't expired, because if it has, it's not going to work properly. And we're going to let it sit in that cup for about 5 minutes. And we're just going to lightly mix it up just so the yeast is all coated with the milk and the sugar. And one way you can tell to make sure it's working correctly is you should have bubbles at the surface of the milk, and that'll tell you that you have good yeast. Just mainly just check the expiration date on it and make sure that it's not expired, because it won't work if it is. Okay, so we're going to let that sit for about 5 minutes. And the first thing we're going to do after it sits for 5 minutes is we're going to make our dough for the cinnamon rolls. So we have 4 2/3 cups of flour, a 1/3 cup of brown sugar, 1 stick or 1/2 cup of room temperature butter, and that's very important that it's room temperature and it's not cold just coming out of the fridge. If you do forget to put the butter out to let it get to room temperature, you can put it in the microwave for about 20 seconds. And then we have 1 egg that is also at room temperature. So I didn't put it out fast enough this morning, so I went ahead and put it in a bowl of water, of warm water, not hot, but warm water, just so it can bring it down to room temperature. And then we also are going to add to the dough vanilla, which is 1 tablespoon of vanilla, 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, and then 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. And that's the part that goes with the dough. Once we get our dough mixed up, we have to let it rest for an hour. And so while it's resting, we can go ahead and do our cinnamon glaze, get that mixed up, and then we can start the second layer, which is going to be the sugar, the butter, the cinnamon, and I'm going to add a couple other ingredients to this dough for the cinnamon rolls. And I'm going to add some cinnamon chips. They actually sell those at Walmart. Some caramel bits, and then also some cream cheese chips, just to give the inner part of the cinnamon roll a little more moisture, or some kind of glaze on the inside. And then of course the top of it's going to be glazed with a cream cheese glaze. Okay, so I'm looking back here at our milk and our yeast. And it's starting to get sudsy, so that means it's a good yeast to use. And we're going to mix it in our stand mixer, and we're going to use the dough hook, not the whisk or the paddle, but the dough hook. That's what we're going to use to mix up our cinnamon rolls. You're going to pour it in the stand mixer, and you can use a regular mixer if you don't have this. But I like using the stand mixer because it does have the dough hook. Alright, so we're going to add our all-purpose flour, and I did sift this flour already. Be sure to sift your flour. If you're using cocoa, powdered sugar, make sure you sift those. So I've already sifted the 4 2/3 cup of flour, all-purpose flour. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that in. And I'm just going to pour half of it in at first, and I'm going to pour in my other ingredients. So I need the brown sugar, the butter, 1 egg, vanilla, salt, and cinnamon. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that up with the flour, part of the flour. And then I'm going to put in the butter, which is softened at room temperature. You want it softened at room temperature so it mixes up properly. Okay. And then I'm going to add the 1 egg. And it does say large egg, so 1 large egg. And then I'm going to put in our vanilla, which is just 1 tablespoon of vanilla. Our salt, which is the 1½ teaspoons of salt. I kind of spread it around. And then we're going to add cinnamon, which is ½ teaspoon of cinnamon. All right, I'm going to mix that on low speed so it doesn't throw flour everywhere, and then I'm going to add the remaining flour. Okay, so now I'm going to add the remaining flour. And you want to mix this dough about 7 or 8 minutes to where it's tacky when you touch it, but it doesn't stick to your fingers. That's how you know if you've properly mixed it. Okay, so we just got done mixing the dough for about 8 minutes, and it's not sticky. So I touch it with my finger. It's not sticky at all, and that's what you want. You want it to where it don't stick to your fingers, and then you know you properly mixed the dough. We just put a little bit of oil in our bowl, and we're going to put our dough in the bowl, cover it with saran wrap and a towel, and we're actually going to let it sit for an hour. Cinnamon rolls don't take that long other than having to let them proof for an hour and then let them rest once you've rolled them up. So we're going to put this in this red bowl. See, it's not even sticking to the sides at all. Just like that. Let me show you what it's going to look like. There it is. See, and there's hardly anything on the bowl left. That's how you know it's properly mixed. If it's sticky and you can't handle it and you can't get it out of the bowl, then you need to go put it back on the mixer, because that means it's not mixed properly. It should be tacky but not stick to your fingers. Alright, so we transferred it to the bowl, and all I'm going to do is put saran wrap on it and then cover it with the towel. That helps it proof better. It does proof the best in a room temperature of 70 degrees, and it should double in size. So I'm covering the bowl, and then I'm going to cover it with a clean rag while it's proofing. Just like this. And then we're going to let it set for an hour. So we're going to set our timer for an hour. Okay, so now it's proofing for it's actually 1.5 to 2 hours for the first rise. And then we're going to roll it out, put our butter on it. Spread our butter out evenly except for like a 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Then we're going to put our brown sugar on it. And then I'm also going to add these cream cheese chips, the cinnamon chips, and also the caramel bites, just to give it a little different flavor profile inside of the cinnamon roll. Okay, so we've already mixed the dough and we're letting it rest for an hour. So while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and mix the icing that's going to go on the cinnamon rolls. And what you need to do that is you need 4 ounces of room temperature cream cheese, a couple tablespoons of softened butter at room temperature. You need 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 tablespoon, or actually 2 tablespoons of milk if you want it to get thinner. And that's all you need, and a pinch of salt. Plus you need sifted powdered sugar, which is 2 cups of powdered sugar. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the cream cheese and the butter. And I'm using the whisk attachment on my stand mixer. Okay, so that was the cream cheese, 4 ounces, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, a pinch of salt, and then our powdered sugar. We're going to put our milk in last. That way, if it's not thin as we want, then we can add more milk, or add the milk. So we're going to put in our powdered sugar, which is 2 cups. Okay, so we've got the 2 cups in. That. All right, so we're going to mix that just for a couple of minutes to get it mixed up on low. Okay, what you want to be sure to do is scrape down your sides of the bowl, because the powdered sugar will stick to the sides if you don't. And you want to get all the powdered sugar into the icing. Or it's actually a glaze that's going to go on the cinnamon rolls. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and add the milk. 2 tablespoons of milk. Okay, and that's all you do for the glaze on the cinnamon rolls. And so we're still waiting for the cinnamon rolls to rise. Once the cinnamon rolls rise, then we're going to actually roll out the cinnamon roll dough on the mat, the baking mat. And then that's when we're going to put our butter and our cinnamon and our chips on top of the dough before we roll it up. You want to try to roll it tight so that it stays tight once it's baked. Okay, so now our dough has rested for an hour with saran wrap on top and a towel over that. It's rested for an hour. So I've lightly sprayed Pam spray into this pan. And I'm just going to spread out the spray with the paper towel. All right. And then I'm going to lightly put flour on our baking sheet. Just so that our cinnamon roll dough doesn't stick to it. Just a little bit. You don't want too much. I just kind of spread it out with my hands. All right, so here's our dough. It's not sticky or nothing. See? It doesn't stick. It's tacky, but not sticky. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll it out. And I have what they call a measured rolling pin, so I got it set for 1/4 inch. So if I take off the orange, it's going to have a different measurement, but that's 1/4 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it 12 by 24 inches is how we're going to roll it out. So make sure you put a little flour on your rolling pin like this. (12 by 24). Once we get it rolled out, then we're going to put our butter on, our brown sugar, and I'm going to add our chips, which is cream cheese chips, cinnamon chips, which they actually sell those at Walmart, and then also some caramel chips. I say caramel, so we're trying to roll it out to 12 by 14 rectangle. Whichever end ends up being the 24 inch end, that's the one we're going to roll it from, the long end. So you don't take much flour. It's not sticking to the rolling pin hardly at all. So that's how you know you've mixed it properly. It's not sticky. If it's sticky, keep it in the mixer longer. Alright, so we're going to brush our butter on. It's supposed to be softened. You only need to put it in the microwave about 20 seconds. This one got a little bit softer than I thought. And I'm just brushing the butter. Now you want to leave it like 1/4 inch on the edges open, so that way you could seal the seam once we get it rolled up. I'm just going to pour it on here and spread it out. This is unsalted butter. And actually, you're going to actually mix up the cinnamon with the brown sugar. Then you're going to put it on there. Mess that up. So you're going to mix the cinnamon up, the 1½ tablespoons of cinnamon with your butter, with your 1½ tablespoons of cinnamon with your brown sugar. And it's 1/2 cup of light brown sugar. Then you're going to put it on your butter. Alright, now I'm going to sprinkle it on. That way the cinnamon is mixed up better. With your cinnamon and your brown sugar. That's what makes the filling, which is what we're doing now. I spread it out with my hands here. And it seems like a lot of cinnamon, but it's really not once you start rolling it up. Now I'm going to sprinkle the chips on the brown sugar and the cinnamon, which is on top of the butter. We spread the butter first. Then we mixed up our brown sugar and our cinnamon together, and then we put it on the dough. What we left like a 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch edge on the outer part of the dough. That's how you're going to seal it up when you're rolling it. You got to roll it really tight. So what we're going to do, mix these up a little bit. So I've got 1/2 cup each of caramel bites, cream cheese chips, and cinnamon chips that I got them all at Walmart. I'm going to sprinkle them on. I like having cream cheese on top, which we've already made the glaze to go on top, but I want some kind of glaze on the inside too. And you can do 1/2 cup or you can do 1/4 cup. We're just kind of experimenting to see if that's going to work. Okay, so now we have all of our chips, cinnamon chips, caramel bites, and also the cream cheese chips. So now what you want to do is you want to roll it up tight as you can get it. Roll it up. Take your time and roll it tight so when we get it rolled up, then we're going to cut it into like 1.5 inch cinnamon rolls and we're going to put them in our pan. They're going to have to rise another hour. So cinnamon rolls do take a long time to make as far as waiting for it to rise, but then there's other things you can be working on. So just take your time, do it tight and slow. Just remember to when you mix your dough, let it mix for about 8 minutes with the dough hook on your stand mixer. Okay. All right, so now it's all rolled up. So now I'm going to kind of seal the edges a little bit with water. So we're just going to put a little bit of water on the edges to seal it up. That's why I said to leave at least a 1/4 inch edge so that you can seal the bottom. And I just kind of tap it on the ends. Make sure the ends are sealed. And I'm just basically putting water on my fingers and then pinching the edge to seal it up. And this is going to be the bottom, so nobody's going to see this anyway, as far as where I pinched it together. All right, almost sealed. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to cut them and put them in our pan to rise again. All right, so now what we need to do on our cinnamon rolls is to cut them. And this recipe will make 12 cinnamon rolls. So we're going to measure it and make sure we got 12. And it's about 12 inches long. So we're going to cut them in 1 inch increments. Because once they rest another hour, they're going to get bigger. So I'm just kind of marking where I'm going to cut with my ruler here because I can't cut straight through. You don't have to do this unless you can't cut straight either. So I always do this because I have trouble cutting straight for some reason. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We have a couple extras on the end. Okay, that's fine. That's 1 inch. Those would be a little bigger. Okay, so what I like to do is I use a pizza cutter. You can use dental floss that's unflavored to cut them. It just makes them not smashed in the middle. But they're going to rise anyway and they're going to bake up just fine. So I'm going to use my pizza cutter and I just put it right in the center. After I've already marked the edges, I know where I'm going to cut. And then I just press down until it comes apart like so. And then I'll reshape them just a little bit when I put them back in the pan to cook. So Alright, so just kind of make sure they're rounded. And just stack them in there. Like so. I'm going to cut this one in half because I think it's too big. And you want to just put them in there touching. They are going to rise some more, so they're going to get bigger just sitting there rising. Resting is what they're doing now. And you have to let them rest another hour. See how when you roll them tight, it looks like there's still gaps in it, but they'll, once they bake, they'll you won't even see no gaps. And you're not going to put on the glaze until we get them out of the oven. We're going to put one layer of glaze and let them sit for a few minutes, and then we're going to put the rest of the glaze, because that makes them the glaze seep down into the cinnamon rolls, which I put cinnamon chips and cream cheese chips and caramel bits in there. So we're going to see how that tastes. Kind of just make sure they're touching, just like with biscuits. When you're cooking biscuits, if you make sure they're touching, they're going to be softer than if you separate them by 2 inches. So just remember that. Keep them touching. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. It says it makes 12 total. We're going to get 12 out of it. I'm going to put some more chips in this one because it was on the end and I don't think it got as many as those. So we're going to stick a couple in there on top. Just kind of smash them in there. On bottom. Okay, so that is 12 cinnamon rolls. I'm just kind of rounded them up a little bit, make them touching. Just like so. Okay, so now we're going to cover them up. We're going to let them sit for another hour. Okay, and when you're placing the cinnamon rolls in the pan, put them cut side down. Whatever side you're cutting, if you're cutting the left side, then put the right side down. So we're going to cover them up. And I usually use saran wrap and then put a towel on it, because towels, collect lint. So. Rolls, and then I'm going to put a towel on top. Okay, so now I'm taking the cinnamon rolls out of the oven. They've been in there 25 minutes. Yeah, they're good. See how they're golden brown? That's how you know they're done. So we're going to bring them over here. And we're going to put the glaze on them. Now we're only going to put half the glaze on at first. And then we're going to let them set for 5 minutes so it can soak into the cinnamon roll. And then we're going to... And then we're going to wait 5 minutes and put the other half of the glaze on. Jesus. Okay. So I have these pastry brushes. They're the rubber kind that I'm going to use to actually put the glaze on. And I've already made the glaze earlier. So I'm going to put a coat of the cream cheese glaze on. And I'm going to let them set for 5 minutes and I'll put the remaining glaze on. This kind of lets it soak into the cinnamon rolls. Okay, so I've got all the glaze, at least half the glaze on all of the cinnamon rolls. Now we're just going to wait 5 minutes and put the remaining glaze on them. Okay, so now we're putting our second layer of glaze on, and it's basically whatever glaze you have left. You're going to put that on. Set that right there for a second. It's just the perfect enough amount of glaze for 12 cinnamon rolls, which is exactly what we have. They're so soft that this is all you need to cut them, really, honestly.
Wow.
There's one.
There's nice.
Here's spoons too.
Oh, that's a spoon. Yeah, you gotta have a spoon to eat that.
I can't see it.
Homemade cinnamon.
Yeah. Homemade cinnamon rolls.
Whatever you want to call them. Yeah. I like the frosting. Frosting is very, very good. Alright, that's why I'm getting a little fat.
I know, that's why I can't lose weight.
Alright, that's it. See you next Sunday
At 2 o'clock.
at 2 o'clock. That's correct.
Thanks for watching.